Welcome to Casper Chess, where we force people to subscribe if they find our content to be interesting. Hey, today's video is going to be amazing, you guys. Like, seriously, I thought I was done with the fried liver alternatives that I presented in my last two videos. But little did I know that there was another unknown crazy alternative to the fried liver, and I'm calling it the boiled liver attack. If that's too difficult to say, then just call it the elbow attack. For the time being, even Stockfish gets confused by this new line, you guys, which a few users on leeches play by accident. Let me show you. So we know that the fried liver attack begins with the Italian game, then goes into the two knights defense, where you play knight g5, then d5, ed, and knight takes d5. So once again, the idea is not to take the f7 pawn like what your coach told you in the beginning. And again, we don't want to play pawn to d4, which is the beautiful lolly attack that I covered in the video that has popped up in the card above. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the new move Queen f3 right on move 6. There are so many beautiful traps that are hidden in this line, you guys, and you're going to love it. But first of all, I want you to check the eval bar and see how confused Stockfish gets after you play Queen f3. Look at this. The eval bar drops to negative 2.6, meaning Black has a decent advantage, as if he is having 2.5 extra pawns. But look what happens to the eval bar after Black takes that knight. It goes all the way up close to equal. Have you ever seen anything like this, you guys? Let me know in the comment section what you think. So this is going to be the start of our position, where we take on d5 with our bishop. So we're basically giving Black some edge, which they can't easily convert. For example, in this position, knight d4 is the engine's top choice, which is only played by 7% of the leech's population. My God. So these are the lines that we're going to cover, starting from the top played move bishop e6, followed by queen f6, pawn to f6, queen g6, and finally knight d4. And I promise you're going to love this before subscribing to this channel. Let's go. Alright, so we just played bishop takes d5 on move 7, and then Black plays the top played move in the leech's database bishop e6. This is a terrible blunder, you guys. This game is already over right on move 8. Just take that knight with check, e.g. the top played move is bc, after which you just take back with your queen, another check, they play bishop d7, covering the check, after which you win the rook, king e7, and now you go knight c3. Next you want to play knight d5 check given a chance, and start winning the pawns. And see this, you guys, Black can't just stop blundering. The top played move played by over 2,000 people out of frustration is queen takes g2, which loses the queen on the spot. You are going to love this. Let me know what you think in the comment section, guys. Let's look at something else that Black can do in this position. After you take their knight with check, well, rather than taking back on c6, they may also block the check immediately, but you can just take on b7 if you want, or be more creative by taking on d7, making Black lose his right to castle. And then you take the f7 pawn, after which you drop your queen to d5 with check. You want to win this pawn, so Black is forced to go to c8, forcing them to disconnect their rooks, after which you just castle short. And this is clearly winning for white once again, ladies and gentlemen. You have pawn to d3 coming, knight c3, f4, your rooks should be on the center. Anyways, let's see what else Black can do. Instead of blocking the check on d7, let's say they play king d8. Well, just take the free pawn. If rook b8, you still go knight c3. You have no weaknesses or whatsoever. Bishop g4 doesn't work, guys, because you have all sorts of moves like queen d5 check and castle short. If bishop d6, the top played move, you have pawn to d3, paving way for your dark squared bishop. Let's say queen g6, the top played move. You can do all sorts of things. For example, bishop d5, since you are already up a piece, you want to start exchanging pieces but not pawns. That's a principle. So by now we can already see that bishop e6 on move 7 does not work in any way. So let's move on to another line, queen f6, after we play bishop takes d5. Yeah, so the second most played move is queen f6, after which you still take on c6. The whole idea is to mess up Black's pawn structure on the queen side. This looks weird for the endgame, you guys. And in all of these pawn structures, the move that you want to play next is pawn to d3 to pave way for your dark squared bishop. You are going to play bishop e3 first, then you go pawn to a3, and knight c3. So the top played move is bishop c5. Since you have a better pawn structure, just start simplifying the game, exchanging pieces. Imagine if you enter with this wave of connected pawns in the end game, you are already winning this game. They may castle short, but you can do the same or go knight c3. Your knight will never be attacked on dark squares by black's light squared bishop. Let's say f5. You castle to the side of the board where the majority of your pawns are, simply because your king will be escorting those pawns in the end game, while on the king side, you will use the minority attack rule to start exchanging these pawns. Anyways, let's see what else black can do instead of taking with the queen on move 8 after you take the knight on c6 with check. So this time they may take with the pawn, but again this is the same structure, you guys. If you want, you can go queen c3, but I don't see a reason to do that. If you already have a better pawn structure, just go for the kill, mess up black's pawn structure. This is good for your endgame, you guys. Again, you go pawn to d3. Let's say bishop c5, you just exchange pieces to simplify the game. This is clearly winning for white. There is no witchcraft here, voodoo or black magic. Rook g8, we have castle short. Bishop h3 doesn't do a thing because of rook f2. If king e7, just go knight c3. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that black is fighting for. The best you can do is just to trade off pieces. For example, rooks against rooks, and this rook maybe against this rook. In the long run, you will put your pawns on dark squares, making black's light squared bishop useless, and you will start capturing black's pawns with your knight and king. Done. So instead of queen f6, back on move 7, black may also play the third common move, pawn to f6, which is a blunder once again, just like bishop e6. Just go ahead and take on c6 with check. If bc, I mean, that was just a free pawn, by the way. You take back on c6 with your queen, and that's check. Whatever black does, you're going to win their free rook on a8. Bishop c5, by the way, the top played move, is yet another mistake because you have queen d5 check, and you win that bishop for free. I mean, it doesn't matter even if black doesn't take back on c6 after you play bishop takes c6 check. If bishop d7, I mean, that was still a free piece. Just take everything that black has in this world, and now, since you don't have queen takes f7 check this time, like in the bishop e6 line, you just take the b7 pawn. Again, your g2 pawn is well protected. If bishop d6, you go knight c3. You want to be developing your pieces in the opening, right? If rook a b8, I mean, you don't want to take on a7 because your g2 pawn will be hanging, so you want to bring back your queen. If f5, you have queen a4 check, and black has no time to capture your pawn on g2. Next, you are going to castle short and life goes on. You'll play pawn to d3 or pawn to d4, even threatening to take on a7. I mean, pawn to f6 on move 7 doesn't work either. So let's see something else that black can do instead of all these things. Back on move 7, maybe black can play queen g6, but just like in the queen f6 line, you can simplify the game in this way, messing up black's pawn structure on the queen side, and once again go pawn to d3. You already know the ideas that we talked about. That's why they play bishop c5. By the way, we just transposed back to the position that we already had, so let's do something different here. Let's say black doesn't take on e3, allowing you to connect your pawns very well. Let's say they go bishop b6. The rule is you want to be placing your pieces on their most active squares. For example, I like pawn to a4 because it threatens f5 next. Besides, you are expanding your pawns for an endgame. They play pawn to a5, by the way, so you just go knight d2. This is what I call initiative. You want to put your knight on a better square, on the most active square. If they play bishop e6 or bishop a6, stopping your knight c4 ideas, well, you have another thing that they didn't see. Castle long, you are ahead in development. If pawn to f5, stopping knight e4 next, well, you can just go rook h e1. If pawn to f5, by the way, you can just take, and next you're going to take this poor pawn. If they decide to castle short, you just take the bishop, and next you're going to win the central pawn. This is clearly winning for white, you guys. So this is not that different from the queen f6 line that we looked at earlier on in the game. So this time, let's say after queen g6 and bishop takes c6 check, black doesn't take with the queen on c6, but let's say with a pawn. Once again, this is just the same situation. So back to our initial position of my boiled liver attack. So having looked at all the bad moves, which are the top played moves in the Lichess database, we now look at the top engine move by Stockfish, knight d4. This is the only equalizing move for black, and so you should know how to fight against it with white pieces. In fact, this is one piece that you need to study more out of everything that I've showed you so far. So your queen is under attack. Just go queen takes f7 check, making black lose his right to castle. But you still need to be very careful. For example, if you play knight a3, you are going to help black develop his dark squared bishop by taking and also activating his rook. If you play pawn to d3, for example, even though most black players play knight takes c2 check, there is a mate in one with queen takes c1 checkmate because the e2 square is covered by the knight. So this is the only line that you need to memorize if need be. So after queen d8 by black, you just go castle short, putting your king to safety. Don't worry about your a-rook. This knight will be out of the game. The second move that you need to know by heart is queen f5 by black after you play pawn to d4. This is not a good move because black is going to force a queen exchange. So this is the only line to memorize. The move that you want to play here instead of pawn to d4 is bishop e4. Stopping queen f5, you don't want to exchange your queens. Let black take your rook on a1. It's not going to come out. So this is when you play pawn to d4, paving way for your dark squared bishop. There is no queen f5 this time, no queen exchange. If queen e7, go queen h5. It can only take one move. For example, e takes d4 for black to throw away the game completely. You have bishop g5, that wins the queen. So black has to be very careful if you play this correctly. The top played move is pawn to g6, but that's just a free pawn. By the way, if bishop g7, that's another blunder because of bishop g5. If bishop f6, you just take the free pawn on e5. This, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't work because you have rook d1 check. The king can't go anywhere. If bishop d7 blocking the check, since black cannot block this check with his elbow, you have bishop f5. So in this line, you are assured of winning the game. For example, one example game in the Leech's database went like this: king c8, rook takes d7. Even though white could have taken on h7 with his rook, he played rook d5, discovery on the king, and on the next move he managed to win black's queen. Again, you can see this knight doing nothing on a1, so don't be afraid of losing your rook in this line, guys. So back on move 7 once again, after bishop takes d5 and knight d4, the top engine move, you simply take on f7 with your queen, and after king d8, you don't go pawn to d3 and hang mate in one, you just castle short. If they take on c2, just play bishop e4, stopping queen f5. After knight takes a1, this is when you go pawn to d4. If queen e7, once again, you go queen h5. But what if they go pawn to g6, and after bishop takes, they don't go bishop g7, they play h takes g6, giving up their rook? Well, it looks like black can rescue his extra piece, the knight, on a1, since our queen is away. But this doesn't work. For example, if knight c2, you can simply go bishop h6, pinning that bishop. You're going to take on e5 next and play rook d1, or simply go bishop g5. If queen takes, you have queen takes f8 check. The only move is king d7. First of all, it's up to you to force a draw in this line or win immediately. For example, queen f7 check. If king c6 is played, you have queen c4 check and you're going to get back your piece. But if black plays king back to d8, you can still go back, give a series of checks. Again, if king d8, you go queen f8 check. By the way, it's up to you to change the game. Instead of going queen f7 check again, you can just take on e5. Black still has no way to rescue his knight. For example, if knight d4, you have queen f7 check again, and that is going to win the knight on d4. If, for example, they go queen e7, you still have queen d5 check, and on the next move you're going to win the knight. So it's very difficult for black to rescue his knight in many of these lines. I suggest that you look at this line with Stockfish using the Leech's analysis board if you have any other questions. I did, and I didn't find any sensible continuation for black. Now, before I end this video, I want to show you other possible sideline variations that black can play in our boiled liver attack that goes as shown on the board, where we do not take on f7 after knight takes d5 by black. Again, you play queen f3, but what if black doesn't take your knight on g5 because they think you are up to something which they don't know? For example, let's say they play bishop e6, the second most played move. Well, you can just go ahead and take the bishop. If fe, you don't have queen h5 check, you guys. Learn to evaluate the current position, don't play by memorization. So you can just castle short. if knight d4 this time, evaluate the position once again, there are some changes on e5. The e5 pawn is not defended this time, so you have queen h5 check. After g6, you are going to take that free pawn, and on the next move, grab black's rook on h8. Even if they take your rook on a1, you are safe. You just start winning all the pawns. By the way, once again, black's knight cannot even escape from Sobibo because of queen takes g6 check, and on the next move, you're going to win that free knight. So this is just one line to show you how the game can go if black chooses not to take your free knight on g5. So instead of bishop e6, if they play pawn to f6, once again, you can just go ahead and take the knight on d5 with either your bishop or even better your queen, intending to checkmate on f7 in case of f takes g5, by the way, which is the second most played move. I don't know why. So you just take on d5 with your queen. If they exchange queens, that's well and good. Let them take your knight because you can mess up their pawn structure. Again, you can see in most of these lines, if things go well or if black tries to refute your lines, they are going to remain with a bad pawn structure for the end game. Let's see what else black can do after they choose not to take your knight. For example, instead of bishop e6 or pawn to f6, let's say black plays knight d4 attacking your queen. Hey guys, this is your puzzle for today. Let me know how you can save your attacked queen on f3 with dignity. Leave your answers in the comment section down below. I'll start marking them and recognize your names. So again, I'm forcing you to subscribe if you liked this presentation. The larger our audience is, the more interesting videos I deliver to you guys. I also plan to start streaming a lot in my future videos once we cross 50,000 people. That's how we roll. And make sure to check out my courses at www.kasperchess.com if you want to take your chess seriously. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye bye.